Hello everyone, I am honored to participate in this conference. Thanks to the organizers of the conference who during the pandemic made it possible for researchers from all over the world to come together and exchange their scientific achievements. My name is Abede Mirzai. I'm PhD student at Allame Tabatabai University together with my supervisor, Dr. Golnaz Modarresi Qawami. I have investigated the effects of age and sex on voice onset time. Our evidence is from Persian word initial stops. Voice onset time is a temporal acoustic parameter that reflects motor speech coordination skills. Defined as a time interval from oral release of the stop plosive to the onset of the vocal fold vibration, VOT is the single most reliable phonetic feature separating voiced and voiceless stops cognate pairs in languages of the world. In Liskin and Abramson view, this feature not only separates voiced and voiceless stop, but also distinguishes aspirated from unaspirated stops. The vibration of vocal folds can occur before, simultaneously with, or after the burst release. Voicing lead refers to those situations in which glottal pulses precede the stop release, and this VOT is given a negative sign. Voicing lag refers to those situations where the stop release precedes the glottal pulses. This VOT value is given a positive sign. Bijankhan and Nurbakhsh showed that Persian uses mainly voiceless unaspirated and voiceless aspirated categories for voice distinction in initial position. In previous studies, age differences have been observed between young and adults. However, no consistent conclusion have been drawn with regard to age differences in VOTs between children and adults. Some reported that the mean VOT productions were fairly short in most children relative to adults, whereas other authors observed longer VOT productions in children compared to adults. Compared to age-correlated patterns of VOT production, only a few studies in the literature have addressed sex differences in VOT productions, with the majority of studies conducted with adult speakers. The findings from these studies are inconsistent. Thus, there is a need to include an adult cohort in future studies. In terms of VOT acquisition, little is known about sex differences in VOT patterns between boys and girls. Also here, the findings were not consistent, as you can see in the table. In addition, VOT values are known to vary systematically according to place of articulation. The general finding is that VOT value increases as the place of articulation moves from anterior to posterior position in the vocal tract. However, for each place of articulation, there are language-specific differences. In Persian, Bijankhan and Nurbakhsh displayed a slight interaction between voicing and sex factors. For voiced stops, females produce higher VOT values, but for voiceless items, the sex difference was not significant. The difference for voiced items could be due to difference between using pre-voiced and short-length VOT by males. Based on the inconsistent findings in VOT patterns seen in the literature, the initial goals of this study were to supplement the literature describing developmental patterns of VOT productions by using a wider age range of participants, including adults, and focusing on changes of VOT values and their patterns of variability as a function of both age and sex. With respect to the developmental changes of VOTs as a function of age and sex, previous research mainly focused on English with one on Mandarin Chinese. As I know, if differences in physiology or speaking style can account for age and sex differences in VOT, identical differences in VOTs are expected to be observed in other languages. Therefore, this study aims to investigate the developmental changes in VOTs in Persian with more participants to bridge this gap. Data were collected from 38 healthy children with 20 girls and 18 boys. Children were grouped into 4 age groups, as you can see in the table, and 10 adults with equal numbers of females and males were recruited to serve as a reference for indexing full majority of VOT patterns. All participants were standard Persian speakers. The 3 voiced and 3 voiceless stops were selected. Each occurs in the onset position of a monosyllable word. To ensure that the stop consonant was placed in the same vowel context, each was followed by the low vowel a. Speech stimuli in this experiment were the pictures of berg, per, ters, der, germ, which means hot, kam, which means little in Persian. During recording, I presented the picture stimuli to the children one at a time in a random order, using verbal prompts to elicit responses. Bi-weekly recordings were carried out for 4 months. For each child. A minimum of 10 production each of words was attempted in each recording session to ensure that VOT distributional characteristics could be accurately determined for all stops. The same recording procedure was done for adults in one session. Data were analyzed using PRET. The final data set consisted of 11,304 tokens. A Pearson product moment correlation was used to calculate the level of iterator reliability. A significant coefficient demonstrated a high level of iterator reliability. Inclusion criteria for measurement were that the production was produced in response to a known picture target. Sounds that were exaggerated, stress affected by background noise, or which displayed no clear burst release were discarded. In tokens that met this criteria, VOT was measured as a duration between the burst representing the release of the stop occlusion and the onset of the glottal vibration using a wideband spectrogram and acoustic waveform. You can see a negative form where the periodic wave starts before the burst, and here is a 0 VOT where the burst point and the onset of voice are simultaneous. 3 calculations were carried out for each participant as a function of age: mean, standard deviation, and coefficient of variance. Coefficient of variance was used to represent the pattern of variability for each participant. The largest order of magnitude was for K, followed by P and T. To examine age and sex effects on mean values for each stop, a separate two-way analysis of variance was carried out. Only main effects of sex were found to be significant for B. Figures illustrate the mean VOT values as a function of age and sex. In addition to examine the effect of sex on VOT values, paired sample t-tests were performed separately on each age group. Results indicated significant sex differences for consonant B in age group 5 to 6 years old and P in adults. A two-way analysis of variance revealed a significant main effect of place of articulation. In all cases, the palatal consonant exhibited a longer mean VOT values than the two other places. Neither the age effect and nor interaction effect between age and place of articulation was found to be significant. Post hoc testing showed that the palatal place had significantly longer mean VOT values compared to alveolar and bilabial places. There was no significant difference between bilabial and alveolar places, but as it is obvious in figures, the mean VOT values in alveolar place is usually longer than bilabial. A two-way analysis of variance were further performed separately for each stop to examine age and sex effects for variability patterns in VOT. A significant main effect of age was seen for B, P, T, and K. Indicating younger children had higher covariance than older children. No sex effect was found. As we have seen with respect to the sex effect on mean VOT production, our data show that despite the longer VOT values in females, the sex factor is significantly only in bilabial place and just in two age groups of 5 to 6 years and adults. The reason for the significant difference in this position of production is probably that boys and men produce negative values. Longer VOTs in females have previously been shown in Whiteside and Irving study. In Persian, Bijankhan and Nurbakhsh observed that the VOT values of voiced stops in initial position of the word is longer in women than men. But in our study, both voiced and voiceless stop had longer VOTs in women. So the findings are not consistent. Also, the findings of this study show that in all age groups and in all productions, the mean VOT values in palatal position is longer than the other two positions. According to the Cho and Ladefoget, there are physiological and aerodynamic characteristics that to some extent explain the variations of VOT associated with a difference in the place of articulation. As, for example, the volume of the cavity behind and in front of the point of constriction, the speed of the movement of articulations, and some other factors. In conclusion, I can say that our research adds to the body of data describing developmental trends of VOT production. In addition, it added new evidence to the effects of age and sex on VOTs in languages other than English. In summary, we found evidence to support previous findings that younger children produce more variable values than adults. The pattern of variability in VOT decreased as a function of age. This observation indicates that children's motor speech skills have not yet fully developed. They constantly develop, refine, and control their motor speech skills. Meanwhile, they undergo anatomical and physiological changes toward maturity. Thus, one aspect of acquiring mature VOT patterns is reducing large ranges and variability found at young ages. With respect to sex differences, our observation of no marked sex effect suggests that the acquisition of voicing contrast is same in Persian-speaking boys and girls till 6 years old. It was also shown that mean VOT values of palatal stops are consistently higher than mean values of alveolar and bilabial stops. Thank you all for your attention.